ladies of our session. My name is Iona Wynter-Parks, and I was the instructor for this course, the service learning course for French, and we instigated a service learning project. The students that were part of the class, and we had 15 students in the class, which we have 3 that are going to explain what they got out of it. We have Rebecca White, the sophomore. She's also on the soccer team and the track team, and she will be doing a minor in French, even though it's not official yet, and her major is in communications. We also have Kayla Stone, minor in French, and in psychology is her major, and Alia Zeigler, and her major is in psychology. No, is it theater? Theater, and then with a psychology minor. And she's also a sophomore. All right, ladies.
Hello, everyone. I'd just like to thank you all for coming this early. I know it looks like the weather might be bad, but thank you for pushing through. It does start storming out. This past fall, Professor Wynter-Parks offered a new type of service learning course. In this course, each student wrote a short story, mainly a children's story, revolving around a certain topic such as sports, animals, or already written fables. Now, through this service learning project, initially founded by the Kennesaw State Chapter, Sowers of Knowledge, our class began not only to harness our French language skills, but our creative ones as well. Now, what exactly is Sowers of Knowledge? Well, in the spring of 2015, Kennesaw State became a part of the parent nonprofit Seeds of Knowledge. Through the Books for Africa campaign, participants are able to use their creative and literary skills to create children's books that will be shipped to Africa. In our case, the stories that we wrote will be shipped to the small African West country of Benin. Oglethorpe used this model to start our own chapter as well as to contribute books specifically destined for Benin. As the first class to do this service learning project, we voted on the name and called it Our True Knowledge. The young children that will receive our books are ranging from the ages of 5 to 11, and although French textbooks may be donated to these schools, the school children do not have access to actual French stories. And we wanted to change that up. We wanted to write something that would give them hope or a little bit more like a fun time. For my story, my individual focus was on sports. My story, called La Fille en le Jeu, which is in English means the girl in the game, is about a young girl named Monique who loved playing soccer, of course. In many developing countries, it is not common for girls or older women to be participants in sports. Yet I wanted to create a story about a girl who overcame these societal pressures to conform. I believe it is very important for boys and girls to have role models or a type of character that we can cling to. Many of our generation loved Harry Potter and loved Hermione. We looked up to her. She was very strong. She was very smart. I thought it was important to have a strong kind of female character because when you're going through life's obstacles, it's important to have something that you can fall back on. One crucial aspect I focused on in my writing was through the language. Since high school, one of my biggest personal obstacles in French has been the language, remembering certain things like articles and where to put exclamation points. I wanted to have a story that was near perfection in its grammar, so that those who read my story will be able to understand the language and grow in their own vocabulary as well. Most of my stories in imparfait or present tense. It sometimes dives into the passé composé as well. Dialogue was an also important piece to my story. Throughout the book, Monique speaks to numerous characters such as her mother, herself, and the antagonist of the scene. I thought it was important to focus on French dialogue because through reading my story at a young age, where vocabulary is being built for more in-depth topics, it's important to understand what they're saying. I also wanted students to imagine a realistic scenario on the soccer field where students speak to each other, they're yelling, and the energy is very high.
Well, hello, my name is Kayla Stone, and I'll be presenting a cultural dip in Benin. I'm feeling this thing. Are you ready? Never before in Oglethorpe has there been a program like Books for Benin. At first, I was hesitant. I love the idea of writing stories, but I hated volunteering. Volunteering at Oglethorpe showed no fear and were even quoted to be more fierce than any male soldier. They were respected, feared, and skilled women who helped increase the kingdom of Ahome. The reason this is culturally relevant to the project is that the kingdom of Ahome spanned territory of what we know today as Benin, parts of Nigeria. The character Izogi represents a very historical figure in Benin's history. I want the children to see her and be able to see their history in a children's book, for even after the elders are gone. As a result of being engaged in this storytelling adventure, I learned to appreciate the benefits of volunteering. As I mentioned above, before, volunteering seemed bothersome and I never really enjoyed it. However, while writing this book, I learned how impactful service can be and became aware of how much someone can be affected both on the receiving end as well as on the giving end. For us, knowing that our books were going directly to these children really made a difference. We all became immersed in our books. Our tree of knowledge worked hard to create stories as diverse as a gazelle traveling the world, yet learning to appreciate home. A girl with purple hair who learned to appreciate her uniqueness. Animals who gave lessons on not being judgmental, and many more. Soon, the project stopped being about volunteering and turned to how can I help and serve.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Can you show which one your book is?
Oh, okay. So this is my book, it's Crack Words, Armudu Tule.
Okay, next we have Ali.
Okay. For my book, I wanted to relate something to children that I had to learn growing up as a kid, like a lesson I had to learn, but I wanted to teach it in a way that a lot of people could relate to. So instead of using people, I decided to use animals as my characters. And also because of the fact that a lot of African folktales involve animal characters anyway. So I felt like it would be something that could culturally relate to because I've used African animals for the characters in my book. This is my book. It's called Acceptation, which is acceptance in English. And basically the story is about a young girl who's a cheetah, who's very shy and very timid, and goes to a new school with all these other animals, so she doesn't know anyone. And so because she's shy, people start making rumors about her. Oh, she's a mean person, she's a rude person because she doesn't talk very much. She's very unfriendly. Yeah, as we see in the story, one of the animals, the main character, the leopard, actually becomes her friend because he's a very social, very nice person. And he's the type of person who's very non-judgmental. And he believes that in order to make a judgment on someone, you have to get to know them first. So that's exactly what he does. He goes up to her and introduces himself, and they become friends. And after he becomes friends with her, everyone else starts opening up to her more and realizing that they had these preconceived judgments before they even got to know her. So like, I was more like the cheetah in the story because I was very quiet as a child. So like, I just wanted to like show kids that like, friends can come in all different forms and shapes and sizes, and you know, just don't judge a book by its cover. So that's what I decided to write about for my story.
And now we're going to tell you about more hard part, figuring out how we made the book, the process. For my own personal obstacle, it was more not necessarily about the story. I was able to write the story honestly in about a day. I felt like I knew the story like it was at the back of my hand. This girl who wanted to be better at soccer, she wanted to be everyone on the field. I could relate to that. Now for my obstacle though, it was about finding good visuals. I went back and forth between if I wanted to draw mine, if I wanted to have someone else draw mine. At the end of the day though, I decided to use pictures and cartoons through the Story Jumper program, which I feel has come out very clean cut and nice. I'm very proud of them. I think one of the also biggest obstacles I went through is finding appropriate pictures. I didn't want to appropriate any culture. I didn't want to make anyone feel insecure about themselves. Going to an African country, I know there's very harsh views on Africa. We think of it as just one big thing. We don't think about it individually. So I wanted to find pictures of like Benin. The back one actually I looked up children in Benin, and I found this one, which I thought was very good. It has a bunch of children hanging out. This is actually in the book too, and what they're doing is they're applauding Monique for beating Cassim. And I'm also very excited for them to be able to open something
me, before I wrote the book, I had many ideas about how I want the story to be. So at first, I wrote about Peach. Peach didn't work out. Or about little kids climbing the walls of the book. It didn't work out. So one day I sat down and I said, well, Kayla, write something. And then it hit me like a truck. So I wrote it down. However, after just the handler's workshop, I was like, okay, I can do better. So I sat down, played African music, and I wrote this. However, my obstacle with this book was not the writing, it was the drawing. I did not know how meticulous I am as a book person in general, so for all of my pages, like they each have a picture, so I'll show you. Not this page, but like I drew most of all the pictures in this book, every last picture, and I procrastinated, so each picture took 2 hours to do, which was not fun. And then after that, I didn't realize the price of the books. So unfortunately, my book is like almost $50 around that range. I'm a cheap college student, so I can't buy it that much. But yeah, the obstacles were, do not procrastinate. Drawing does take time, and I am not an artist, but I feel like I was at the time. And yeah, just sit down and write your story.
I guess I'm similar to Kayla in that I struggle with procrastination and also different ideas that I wanted to write about. And I knew from the get-go that I wanted to write about animals and that I wanted to write about African animals that the kids could relate to. These are animals that they would actually see outside, that they've actually seen before. And I had one idea, and even when I first started writing about it, it just didn't seem right, and I wasn't very passionate about it. But once I was able to get an idea in my head that I could relate to, like the story that I have now, it became much easier to write it once it became something that I actually cared about, something that was really close to me. And so I was really excited about the drawing part because I love to draw like a lot. And so like I got like out my art pencil because it was like shading and like it's only black and white like shading, but I put a lot into it because I really do love to draw. So I think another part of it was I was so excited about getting to draw the story and getting to draw the animals that like my story kind of lacked at the beginning, but once I found my story, it became a lot easier to do everything else.
To sum up, archery of knowledge is an exciting way to positively impact a child's life. For myself, while writing my book, I learned about the history of Benin and how volunteering can be beneficial, not just boring. The power of stories can change lives, as well as viewpoints. There is something so special about reading a book. The outside world melts away, and it's just you and the story. The hook pulls us in, and we often become lost in stories. We became storytellers through archery of knowledge, and we are proud to pass on these stories to young children and help to open their perspectives. The French professor, who is from Benin, told us that when the students receive the books, one of the first things that they do is to turn the end to read about the person who took the time and effort to create a story for them. As they are touched by this expression of human contact and caring, so too are our spirits as givers of our time and experiences.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thought if you had any questions that they would be happy to answer, I'd be happy to answer any questions as well. And in the audience, we also have 2 other students that were part of the project, and they can answer questions.
I have a question about books for you because it was so nice to hear you talk with such pleasure about books. And I was recently at a committee meeting of professors where we were talking about students using the library less, and with electronics, maybe the whole notion of book being something that is going to disappear in some ways. Do you like books? Did this change the way you think about books?
I read books every day. I love books. Have my own book now. Like for this book, I actually went to the library to like research children's books and storytelling. So yeah, this just made me like, I like books out of 500. It's like 1,000 now. It's like over
staying up to read Harry Potter past my bedtime and getting in trouble for reading at like midnight when I was like 8. So like, no, I grew up with books and very much have a love for them. And I agree with Becky. I mean, Kindles and Nooks are fine or whatnot, but there's nothing like having a hard book that you can actually like hold on to and have like as yours. Because at any second, your books could be just like whacked away like that. Is like how I feel. Like, what are you gonna do if like maybe their system crashes and all your books are gone? But no, if you have a physical copy, like no one can really like just poof, take it away from you. So
And,
I think that's the point.
and to add to that, remember that the technology is still a first world problem. I mean, this community that's going to receive, the receiving community, they can't even get, they don't even have physical books, as you know, Dr. Lutz, much less internet. So, and then the idea of having something, one of the things that Kayla had mentioned was the elders are dying out, and in many African countries they have the oral tradition, and they get their storytelling through the oral tradition. So if the elders are dying out, then the stories are dying as well. And so if they can have stories, some of these stories, yes, they're respecting the Benin culture, because the students tried to learn about what the receiving culture could relate to. And in some cases, some of the stories are actually from Benin, but saved for posterity. So there was one student who was not comfortable creating a story, and so there are 3 levels that we allow them to do. This is an example of the creative types, and most students created. But if somebody was going to respect and hand on a story that was in their culture already, then they were allowed to do so. The language was a lot more from Benin, and usually you had to be a little bit higher on the grasp of language to be able to even do that. It wasn't, they had to understand the story. It wasn't simply a matter of copying. So I think having the physical books will be definitely, if these guys value it and they're in the first world, then I'm sure the students that will receive it will be thrilled.
And kids love like free stuff.
Dr. Altahadi?
You mentioned how expensive your book was, $50. But I know that some of your books were sent to Benin. So what were the financial arrangements? How was that? What happened there to allow you to send these books on to the children?
Well, these guys don't really, I mean, they have an idea. Although Kayla and Becky and Victoria's not here, they're now officers of the chapter, so they're more in tune with what we would be doing. We've been making plans for going forward. But the professor that founded it, she's from Benin, as they mentioned, and she's at Kennesaw. When she was showing us samples of what students have created in the different chapters, and there's an Emory chapter, UGA chapter, Agnes Scott, and she was saying that you can make a book as cheap as $5, which sounds really enticing, except that it didn't look as good. And so one of the things that we did before we even started getting into narrative structure workshops and French stories was I made them research digital platforms that were out there. And they were all pretty expensive. We ended up settling on Story Jumper because it was going to be around $24. Notwithstanding Kayla's adding and adding and adding, and so hers was closer to $50. But everybody else's was $24.95. So, and the advantage of why I wanted to go digital was because it was the first time we were doing the project as Oglethorpe. So I was going to have to show it to somebody. And so we were going to have it on a digital platform, as well as once these books, they're going next week to Benin, once they leave physically, if the library wanted a copy, then we could get a few. to show students work. If the students or family members, their friends want a book of their own, then it's still there even after the book's already been, but they can have their own story when they're ready to afford it and put down their own credit card. So going forward, instead of how I would reorganize the costs is their book, I did this for 202, their official textbook is going to be a course pack with all the grammatical exercises and the stories that they learn, the fairy tales, the African legends and things like that. And that'll be on Moodle, and they'll just work digitally that way, and they won't have to pay for a book, a textbook, but they'll have to pay for their end product. And textbooks normally, I mean, sometimes they have to pay $100 for it brand new, so $25 is cheap, consider it. So that's one of the lessons that we learned. Other questions? Dr. Terry. You guys need to get to know Dr. Terry as well, French minors.
I was wondering if you personally or other students that ever considered doing any collaborations with art majors or illustration concentrations or anything like that.
Great question. Actually, we have, so these guys did their own, but Nancy wanted to, the range of students is from 5 to 11, so we're talking about young students. This student was a high grammatical intermediary student. She wanted to do that. She wanted to target a story for the older kids. So her story is more dense, but she couldn't draw. She was also in Dr. Steen's Japanese class, and so she met somebody who was very, very talented, and that person wanted to contribute to her project, and so they worked together the entire semester. These paintings that were done by this fellow Japanese student are incredible. And so my only stipulation was, if you collaborate, make sure that artist that you work with, or whoever is doing your illustration, or gets credit as well. So you have Nancy in her conception of the story, and then you have the person that you collaborated with that has the. And so, and there was, I think there may have been one other instance, but it was an unusual class in that they, except for Nancy, they all created their own things, and that was part of the process that they liked. So I was trying to think of anything that might come up, the people who, it was interesting to see the process, because some people like Becky had the story practically written from the first week. And there were deadlines that we were doing in all of our meetings, and then, but it was taking a long time to get the graphics, appropriate photos, correcting and editing the grammar. Other people were stuck and couldn't. They just couldn't move. They had, I guess, what we think of as writer's block. But so it was interesting that they all had these deadlines, and they had to respect a publishing process, if you will. So one way of getting that going was, by a certain date, they had to have one page completely edited. So, and sometimes that unstuck them. If they were stuck when they saw a page done, then like in the program, then that allowed them to push forward.
I have a question.
Yes.
So Kayla, I think you're in the middle, right? So one thing that you mentioned was about how your experiences with service projects at Oglethorpe until now hadn't been very beneficial. And this one was, and of course, the whole reason Oglethorpe created the Center for Civic Engagement and integrated service into the Oglethorpe education is to give students those kinds of experiences. So I'm curious if you, the group, or you as a professor have thought about or already shared your ideas with the Center for Civic Engagement and maybe talked about making this more of a service project, more integrated with.
We got a lot of help actually from the Center of Civic Engagement, and when Tamara Nash was here, she and Patrick Rayshaw helped to set up the Books for Africa trip, because they actually went down to the Books for Africa, or up or across. Anyway, we went over to Smyrna, and they saw what happens in the regular Books for Africa program, and we sorted through those books. So I think they understand. I'm not sure if you had any other engagement other than your first experience, which you didn't have a connection. I mean, it's clear that this one was a connection, and so she responded to it. But I think that they understand in general the Center for Engagement, for Civic Engagement, and our service learning mission at Oglethorpe, and is one of the things that is very cool about Oglethorpe. As far as campus-wide, that's one of our goals. It would be the next step, and it's probably a little bit intimidating at first because you think it's only for French. And it is, the receiving community, they do need the books in French. That's the language that that's one of their official languages. However, there are other chapters and there are other schools around Atlanta that are they're creating stories in English. So I think it could be accessible for other members of the campus. Or as Dr. Terry was saying, some people want to get involved just to illustrate. Like perhaps they can't contribute in French, or maybe they want to contribute a part of the story. I think there's a student that presented for us at Cortex Association, Elizabeth Kirkwood. She wanted to just be involved in the project. So I think people who are creative might be interested, and we are going to reach out to Civic Engagement, to the Center for Civic Engagement, to see how they can help us with that. Renee Very is going to help promote it, and then of course by you doing a story on it, hopefully that the awareness will be higher.
I wonder, maybe you'd like to share with the group how the two of us got involved in all of this. We got invited to a gala of the organization, and am I not right? You were just completely taken with the idea.
Actually, when America was interviewing me, she asked me, and she already had Dr. Lutz in French. She asked me how did we get involved in this. I said, well, Dr. Lutz knew the professor at KSU and introduced me, and then we subsequently went to this gala, and it was Benin. I mean, I felt like I was in Benin, and I've only been to one African country. I've only been to Zambia. So, but you could see they put on dances. You could, I mean, it was like it was like a whole another community. And you know that there are these communities that are from all over the world that are in Atlanta, and I just thought I was really moved by the project, and everybody that had been involved in the project from all over, small children, different high school, different elementary schools even, were showing their books. So I thought it would be a great, and also I'm a firm believer that you are not going to just do well in pure grammatical exercises and drilling. And so if there's something content-wise that can engage the students, then they are going to actually be better in the language. So I was really interested in doing that because I'm teaching 100, 200 level, 300 level French, but they're still considered grammatical courses even at the 300 level, even though we're getting into conversation, literature. These students are still grasping and trying to master those grammatical concepts. So the content, anything content that I can plug into them, then if they can go with it, and from that standpoint, I have seen an improvement in their grammatical structure, in their tests are better just because they're interested. Did Marnique, and we have Marnique Turner and Fanny Riviere, they also have two books, a book each in here. Did you guys have anything that you wanted to add before we close this session about your experiences?
My name is Marnique Turner. I'm a freshman biology major, freshman minor. She's 11 years old. And she's like a little brown girl, and she loves to sing and dance, but she eats a lot of junk food. And so the whole plot for the story was a little girl, she's throwing a concert for her country, Benin, but she loses her voice because she eats a lot of junk food the night before. And so she has to find like all of these different ways to like heal her voice. And she finally found something, and she did it on her own. So it's kind of like about kind of being independent and being like, you have to be obedient and stay away from junk food. It's like a cute little story. And yeah, I love my sister so much, so I just wrote it about her. Yeah, thank you.
Marnie actually was she served as a tester for the book because she wanted to give her book as a Christmas present. So she finished her book before the deadline for the semester, for the grades. And she ordered her book on her own dime and had that come to her, her address in Tennessee. And so I was happy about that because then I could see that I didn't know how it was going to come out. I didn't know what the final product was going to look like. And so it was really nice that we had a little tester before we ordered the rest of them. Maddie?
Hello, my name is Katie, and I wrote my book about instruments. I'm more in Africa and a lot of drums. And I just wanted to introduce different types of instruments, wind instruments, like violins or anything like that. So it was a hard process writing because I'm not really a writer, but I enjoyed it. It helped me grasp the language better, French. It was fun. Drawing was terrible, but I got through it. I enjoyed the class.
Well, thank you all for coming. And thank you to our panel.